Hello and welcome to Victoria's Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Mattel Jurassic World Basic Indoraptor. Previously, we took a look at the basic Velociraptor Blue. These are larger size dinosaurs available at a low price point. MSRP on these is $9.99. I picked mine up for a couple dollars above that from Amazon.com. It's definitely nice to have another Indoraptor in the Mattel Jurassic World line, so I'm excited to get it opened up and see what the figure is like. Alright, so once you get the figure out of the packaging, you are left with the actual dinosaur and the tail separately. To plug it in, we're merely going to line it up and plug it into position. And here is the assembled Indoraptor. And I gotta say, from an aesthetic perspective, this looks pretty great. It's very nicely sculpted overall. It's a little light on the paint detail, but of course the Indoraptor is just mostly black, so there's not a whole lot that needed to go into it. It is a very narrow looking figure. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Let's take a close-up look at the head sculpt. Now, I absolutely love this head sculpt, and before I even compare it to the other Indoraptors, I already feel like it's the most film accurate. It just looks incredible. And even the paint detail, for some reason, it just feels more accurate. In the film, the Indoraptor was more of a matte color, not so glossy like the superposable Indoraptor or the grab and grill Indoraptor figures. And I think they captured that a little more nicely on this figure. Definitely looks more accurate to that. These little pieces that stick out are soft back here. I mean, just the eye detail, it's almost got the hint of a grin, just like it did in the film. So that's pretty cool. The only thing I could really say about it negatively is that they didn't paint the teeth. If you're a little bit keen with painting, you could probably do that pretty easily. I don't think that would be too hard to do. But it is notable that they didn't paint the teeth. It still looks great. It's still an awesome looking head sculpt. And as you get along the body, just the silhouette, I think, looks very film accurate of the entire dinosaur. Or if you want to call it a dinosaur, I guess it's more of a monster, if anything. And of course, it's hunkered in this position here. It's not meant to stand up on two legs. So if that's important to you, this wouldn't be the Indoraptor to go with. But it's meant to kind of just crawl along on four legs. And I guess you'd pose it as a tripod like this. But it still looks good. Of course, it'll walk like this in the film, so I'm totally okay with it, especially at the basic price point that these figures go for. And just the sculpting along the entirety of the dinosaur is very nicely done. It might be a little bit softer than what we see with some of the other Indoraptors in this line, but it still looks very sufficient, looks quite nice. These protrusions are a little bit soft too, softer plastic. And the rest is very rigid. The toe claws seem to be a little bit pliable as well. Maybe the finger claws as well. I will say that it is very skinny. This looks like a very emaciated Indoraptor. That's really the only other negative thing I could say, other than the teeth, which isn't a huge deal to me. It just looks like this thing hasn't eaten in months or something. Yeah, I don't think that's quite accurate to the film. I think the Indoraptor was definitely a little more bulky looking than this. But beyond that, when you look at it from the side, I think it looks pretty close to perfect. Fingers look very nice, nicely done, nice detail, nice sculpting. And they even did a slightly different color of plastic when they painted all of these claws. You can see it's a very slightly different black from the feet. And there's the underside right there. There's no Jurassic Facts app with the basic line of dinosaurs. So in terms of articulation, nothing going on with the head, no jaw movement. You can rotate the upper arms forward and back. For the hind limbs, you can move those forward and back as well. And you can also rotate the ankles. And then here at the tail, that's actually on a insert molded hinge. So you can move it down, you can move it up, you can go side to side. Pretty nice movement in the tail. It almost looks like there is a cut right there, and you can sort of kind of move it a little bit, but I don't really think it's meant to be a proper joint. And again, the paint detail, very nice black color. It has a little bit of a shimmer to it, but not anything like those other Indoraptor figures. Also very nice paint detail for this stripe right here. You have the gold, and then you have the more orangey gold kind of going down the sides of its body. And that's actually really nice looking. It's got a very nice shimmer to it. So I really do dig that. So in terms of measurements, you're looking at about 16 inches from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, and then to the top of the hip, that's going to be closer to 5 1/4 inches. Here's a comparison of our basic Indoraptor next to the Owen figure, and these actually look to scale up pretty nicely. I don't know if maybe the Indoraptor is a little bit large, but it's really not that bad. It seems to be fairly accurate. So here's the basic Indoraptor compared to the superposable Indoraptor, and you can see that they are roughly the very same size, which is very interesting. Even the heads, one next to the other, I mean, you can see that these are very much the same size, which is pretty cool. Of course, well, I guess even the superposable is pretty emaciated, but not quite as much as the basic figure. I didn't realize how skinny it was though before. But yeah, I mean, this is really nice. And again, I do think that they did a nicer job with the head sculpt of the basic Indoraptor compared to the superposable. Now we have the basic Indoraptor next to the Grab and Growl Indoraptor. And again, pretty close in size, but of course the Grab and Growl is the larger figure. It's just a bulkier figure. It has bigger proportions. Of course, like the superposable Indoraptor, lots of glossy, shiny plastic on the Grab and Growl Indoraptor, except for the bottom where it's more matte. But when you look at the basic Indoraptor, it's a lot more matte looking for the most part, even though it's a little bit glimmery. It's not nearly as so as the other two Indoraptors. The head sculpts, looking at them one to the other, I think they did a really good job with the Grab and Growl, but again, for some reason, I just feel like the basic figure just looks more movie accurate to me. It just has that sly Indoraptor look to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Mattel Jurassic World Basic Indoraptor. So the basic line is very interesting. It doesn't seem like anything is really in scale with each other. Like the Owen figure is 12 inches tall. The blue figure that we reviewed previously is not nearly in scale with Owen, but it is roughly the size of this Indoraptor. So this is like the one line that Mattel didn't scale everything one to the other, which I guess makes sense if they're trying to sell each figure at the $9.99 price point. It's kind of hard to do that. I like this Indoraptor quite a bit. This is great if you just want to have a Indoraptor figure at $10. It's really hard to go wrong, especially considering how nice it looks. Again, great sculpt, great coloring on it, and the head looks awesome. If you wanted to try your hand at repainting one of the Indoraptors, this would probably be the one to go with as well. So I know these are available through Kohl's. I haven't seen the Indoraptor specifically, but I have seen others in the basic line there. And again, I got this from Amazon.com. And I think they're scalping it right now. It's somewhere around $19 at the moment, which is a little bit silly. You don't want to pay that much for it. All right, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about the basic Indoraptor down below. And stay tuned for the next episode of the Cantina Chatter podcast, where we will be discussing 25 years of Jurassic Park toys with Stephen Ray Morris from the See Jurassic Right podcast, Chris Pugh from Jurassic Outpost, and Jurassic Collectibles, the oldest Jurassic Park toy review channel on YouTube. All right, my friends, until next time, bye-bye.